The laughter started quietly, not cruel, not loud, just enough to be heard. Emily Carter stood at the nurse's station holding her orientation file, fingers tight around the edges. Her uniform was too neat, her shoes too new, her posture too straight for a place where exhaustion usually bent people in half. "Is she fresh out of school?" one nurse whispered. "Looks like she's about to cry," another replied, smiling. Emily pretended not to hear. She always did. The charge nurse glanced at her badge and sighed. "You're late. I arrived 20 minutes early," Emily said calmly. The charge nurse didn't look up. "Then you're slow." A few snickers followed. Emily swallowed and nodded. "Where do you need me?" "Room 417. Everyone avoided that room. A middle-aged trauma patient. Multiple fractures. Night terrors. Aggressive when triggered. The kind of patient seasoned nurses silently passed off to someone else. Perfect for the new girl. Emily walked down the corridor alone. Inside 417, the man thrashed against the restraints, sweat soaking the sheets. His breathing was erratic, eyes wide and unfocused. "Get away," he shouted. "Get down." Emily didn't flinch. She stepped closer, slow and steady. "My name is Emily," she said softly. "You're safe." The man's eyes locked on her. For a split second, the room went silent. Then, "Medic," he whispered. Emily's chest tightened. "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "I'm here." His breathing slowed. Outside, a nurse watched through the glass. "Huh," she muttered. "That never happens." By the third day, the jokes became louder. "She talks to patients like they're soldiers," one nurse laughed. "She's not cut out for this place," another said. "Too stiff. Too serious." Emily ate lunch alone. Every day, she didn't complain, didn't explain, didn't defend herself. But at night, when she removed her shoes, her hands shook. Room 417 became her assignment permanently. The patient, Mark Davis, only responded to her. When others entered, his heart rate spiked. When Emily entered, it stabilized. Doctors noticed. Administrators didn't care. Until the morning Mark flatlined. Alarms screamed. Staff rushed in. Emily was already there. She climbed onto the bed without waiting for orders. "Mark, look at me," she shouted, pressing hard on his chest. "Stay with me." Her voice changed. Sharp, commanding, unafraid. The room froze. She counted compressions perfectly, called out vitals without looking at the monitor. Directed the team like she'd done it 1,000 times. The doctor stared at her. "Who trained you?" he asked. Emily didn't answer. Mark's pulse returned. Barely. Afterward, in the hallway, the charge nurse crossed her arms. "You overstepped." Emily met her eyes. "He's alive." That night, Emily received a call. A short one. She didn't say much. Just, "Yes, sir," and, "Understood." The next morning, the hospital shook. A deep, thunderous sound rolled through the sky. Windows rattled. Patients screamed. Staff rushed outside. A Navy helicopter descended onto the emergency landing zone, rotors slicing the air like knives. Silence fell. The helicopter door opened. 4 men stepped out, uniforms crisp, faces unreadable. One of them looked straight at the hospital entrance. At Emily, and saluted. Every laugh died instantly. No one spoke. Not the doctors, not the nurses, not the patients who had followed the noise outside. The wind from the rotors flattened coats, tore papers from hands, and made it hard to breathe. But Emily Carter stood perfectly still at the hospital in trance, her hair pulled back, her expression unchanged. One of the SEALs stepped forward. Tall, broad, calm in a way that didn't belong to normal life. "Petty Officer First Class Emily Carter?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. Another murmur rippled through the crowd. The charge nurse laughed nervously. "This is a mistake." The SEAL ignored her. "You're requested on base," he said. Immediately, Emily nodded. "Give me 1 minute." She turned back inside. No one moved. She walked to room 417. Mark Davis lay awake, eyes following her. "They're here," he said quietly. "Yes," Emily answered. He swallowed. "For me, for both of us," she said. Mark closed his eyes. "I knew it." Outside, administrators argued in whispers. "You can't just take our staff," one protested. The SEAL didn't blink. "We're not asking." In the helicopter, the noise was deafening. Emily strapped herself in without instruction. Mark, transferred carefully onto a stretcher, watched her with tired eyes. "You never told them," he said. "They didn't need to know," she replied. "You were a medic," Mark said. "Not just a nurse." Emily didn't correct him. 10 years earlier. Dust. Heat. Explosions in the distance. Emily ran toward the sound of gunfire while others ran away. Man down. Someone shouted. She slid beside Mark, then a different man, then another. Her hands moved without hesitation, blood soaking her gloves. Stay with me, she repeated again and again. A blast threw her backward. When she woke, her ears rang and her vision blurred. Mark was gone. They told her he was dead. They were wrong. Back to the hospital airspace. The helicopter touched down at a military medical facility. Doctors rushed forward. A colonel approached Emily. You saved his life again, he said. Emily shook her head. He saved mine first. Mark survived the surgery. When he woke, Emily was there. You came back, he said. I promised, she answered. The hospital aftermath. News spread fast. The staff who laughed didn't laugh anymore. They spoke her name carefully now. The charge nurse avoided her eyes. A memo went out. Emily Carter, on indefinite leave, honorably reassigned. Someone left her locker untouched. No jokes, no whispers, just silence. The last moment, before leaving, Emily stood in the empty hallway one last time. She looked at the nurses' station, at the place where they laughed. She didn't smile, she didn't frown, she simply walked away, and no one ever laughed at the new nurse again. The hospital went back to routine. Monitors beeped, stretchers rolled, shifts changed, but something had shifted underneath it all. Room 417 stayed empty. No one asked for it. No one wanted it, because everyone remembered the sound of the helicopter. And the salute. Emily didn't return. Weeks passed, then months. The jokes never came back either. New nurses arrived, quiet, nervous, unsure. This time, no one laughed. On the base, Mark learned to walk again. Slowly, painfully, without complaint. Emily walked beside him, always half a step behind, just in case. You could have stayed civilian, Mark said one evening, watching the sunset bleed into the horizon. I tried, Emily replied. And, she paused, some parts of you don't come home. Mark nodded. I see that now. They didn't talk about rank, or medals, or the missions that never made the news. They talked about ordinary things. Coffee, sleep, silence. The file. A sealed envelope arrived for the hospital director. Inside, a formal notice. Commendation for valor, Emily Carter. Combat medic, multiple life-saving actions under fire. The director read it twice. Then a third time. He didn't frame it, he locked it away. Some truths arrived too late to change anything. One last visit, Emily returned once. No uniform, no escort, just her and a small bag. She stood at the nurse's station where she had once been laughed at. The charge nurse looked up. Their eyes met. I owe you an apology, the charge nurse said quietly. Emily considered her for a long moment. Then, be better to the next one. She turned and walked away. That was all. Years later, a new trauma wing opened. A plaque hung near the entrance. Not big, not dramatic, just words, in honor of those who serve quietly, and save lives before anyone is watching. A nurse once asked, who was it for? No one answered. Final scene. Somewhere far from the city, a helicopter lifted into the sky. Inside, a medic checked a patient's vitals. Calm hands, steady voice. Outside, chaos waited. Inside, there was purpose. And somewhere, in a hospital that once laughed, a new nurse walked down a hallway, unafraid. The call came before sunrise. No sirens, no announcements, just a single word passed down the chain. Inbound. Emily was already awake. She always was. The helicopter blades cut through the morning fog as the stretcher was loaded. Multiple casualties. Civilian convoy. Mountain pass. Too late for air support, except this one. Mark tightened the straps. This one's bad. Emily checked the IV without looking up. They always are. The helicopter lifted. Inside the storm, the first patient went into cardiac arrest midair. No panic. Emily moved. Hands firm. Voice low. Stay with me. The second patient screamed until the pain meds kicked in. The third never spoke at all. Mark watched her work. Not fast. Precise. Like someone who had learned the cost of mistakes early. Why don't you ever hesitate? He asked between movements. Emily didn't answer right away. Then, because someone once didn't. Back at the hospital. A different hospital. Different city. Same fear. Doctors waited as the helicopter landed hard. Emily jumped down before the blades stopped. Trauma 1. Now. They listened. Not because of rank. Because of certainty. Hours later, the last patient stabilized. A surgeon removed his gloves slowly. Who are you? Emily washed her hands. Just a nurse. No one laughed. The message. That night, Emily sat alone in the locker room. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. My daughter starts nursing school next month. Thank you for showing her what strength looks like. Emily stared at the screen for a long time. Then she replied with 2 words. Tell her this. Stay kind. Mark's question. They stood outside under a quiet sky. You ever think about stopping? Mark asked. Emily looked up. Sometimes. And, I remember the first room they put me in, she said. The laughter. The doubt. Mark nodded. And the helicopter. Emily allowed herself the smallest smile. No, she said. I remember the patient. The next new nurse. Another hospital. Another hallway. A young nurse dropped her clipboard. Hands shaking. I'm sorry, she said quickly. Emily picked it up and handed it back. You're doing fine, she said. The nurse blinked. You don't even know me. Emily met her eyes. I do. Final image. Somewhere, a helicopter passed overhead. People looked up. Most never knew why it flew. They never saw the quiet inside. They never heard the steady voice. But they lived, and that was enough. The helicopter lifted off without ceremony. No one waved. No one saluted. Emily watched until it disappeared into the clouds, then turned back toward the hospital doors. This time, she walked in as a visitor. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. A woman sat alone, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. When Emily passed, the woman looked up. Are you a nurse? She asked. Emily stopped. Yes. They took my son in there, the woman said, voice shaking. He stopped breathing. Emily sat beside her, not as a medic, not as a soldier, just as a human being. He's not alone, Emily said. That matters more than you think. The woman nodded, tears falling freely now. Down the hall, a young resident argued with an older doctor. She's unstable, the resident insisted. So were half the people we saved today, the doctor replied. Emily kept walking. She didn't need credit. She never had. Mark's call. Her phone buzzed. You still alive? Mark asked. Emily smiled faintly. Barely. Good. Because I need you to hear this. She leaned against the wall. They're opening a training unit, Mark continued. Combat to civilian transition. Medics who don't fit neatly back into hospitals. Emily closed her eyes. And, they want you to lead it. Silence. That's not my style, she said. Mark exhaled. That's exactly why it is. The choice. That night, Emily sat alone in her apartment. No medals on the wall. No photos framed. Just a pair of worn boots by the door. She thought about the laughter. The helicopter. The patients who never knew her name. She thought about the new nurses. About the ones who would come after her. Emily picked up her phone. Tell them yes, she said. Months later, the classroom was quiet. 12 faces. All different. All tired in the same way. Emily stood at the front. No podium, no slides. If you're here, she said, it's because you've been told you're too much, or not enough. A few heads nodded. You're neither, Emily continued. You're trained for chaos. We'll teach you how to survive peace. No applause, just understanding. The last patient. Late one evening, a call came in. Single victim, car accident, teenage girl. Emily arrived before the ambulance doors fully opened. The girl's eyes were wide with fear. I don't want to die, she whispered. Emily leaned close. You're not, she said. I won't let you. The girl believed her. That mattered. Closing moment. Years later, in hospitals across the city, something changed. New nurses weren't laughed at. They were watched. Carefully. Respectfully. Because somewhere in every hallway, there was a quiet memory. Of a woman who said little. Did much. And proved that strength doesn't announce itself. It arrives. And saves lives.